Greta Thunberg, Empath or Narcissist, Part 6. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor, and we continue our analysis of climate and political activist Greta Thunberg. We're going to look at what her friends say about her. Again, this provides us with useful insight coming from third parties. Are they effusive in their praise for her? Do they highlight good characteristics? Or do they complain about her behaviour? Has she a litany of people left behind on the shelf who claim that she simply used them and they don't hear from her anymore? Are there friends who describe conflict with her? Again, a variety of different perspectives enable us to understand more about what she is. Thunberg's friends often emphasize her genuine commitment to climate justice and her refusal to be swayed by fame or external pressures. Now, this might perhaps demonstrate an individual that needs control and therefore won't be swayed by external pressures because they threaten a need for control. Alternatively, it may well be someone that has a deep-seated conviction and isn't interested in fame. An absence of courting fame does tend to militate against a person being a narcissist. However, as you know, there are different kinds, and just because somebody isn't necessarily a show-off or engages in showcasing or chases fame doesn't mean that they are not a narcissist, because there are types of narcissists that don't go down that route. It's also important to distinguish between those individuals that are famous but haven't necessarily pursued that fame, and those that utilize their fame to talk about themselves, or those that utilize their fame as a platform to talk about a cause. Friends describe Thunberg as someone who remains true to her values, prioritizing the cause over personal recognition. Vanessa Nakate, who is a Ugandan climate activist, Thunberg firstly has spoken highly of her, calling her an incredible person who inspires her due to the greater risk Nakate faces as an activist in Uganda. While Nakate's direct quotes about Thunberg are less documented in sources, there does appear to be a mutual respect. Nakate's work with Thunberg, especially after the 2020 Davos photocropping incident, indicates a bond that's been built on shared goals, with Nakate appreciating Thunberg's efforts to amplify marginalized voices. Disha Ravi is an Indian climate activist. Ravi, a prominent Fridays for Future (FFF) activist, has expressed frustration with the media's focus on Thunberg, noting that it sometimes overshadows activists from the global south. However, she acknowledges Thunberg's role as a powerful tool for the movement, stating that Thunberg doesn't want to be the face of this global climate justice movement. Ravi's comments suggest a complex view, appreciation for Thunberg's platform, but a desire for broader representation. Dominika Lasota is a Polish FFF activist. Lasota described the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on FFF, noting that the movement was paralysed without street protests, which Thunberg pioneered. Her comment suggests that Thunberg's leadership was central to the movement's momentum, reflecting her friend's recognition of her as a driving force. Jamie Henn, a climate organiser who witnessed Thunberg's interaction with Takata Iron Eyes, Henn recounted a 2019 meeting with US House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, where Thunberg comforted Takata Iron Eyes, a Sioux youth leader who was emotional after speaking about her tribe's struggles. Henn noted, Greta put her arm around her and sat with her, refusing a photo op with Pelosi to stay with Iron Eyes. This act of solidarity impressed Henn, showing Thunberg's prioritization of human connection over political optics. Is this demonstrative of emotional empathy for another human being, or is it performative that Thunberg knows that by shunning a political photo opportunity and instead being seen photographed and spoken about putting her arm around a Sioux youth leader, that actually provides her with a better view, and therefore it is a cynical manipulation. Various FFF activists in a 2022 Political article expressed frustration with the media's obsession with Thunberg, but acknowledged her as a vital figure in mobilizing global protests. One activist noted that Thunberg's school strikes spread around the world, inspiring millions, including themselves, to join the movement. This demonstrated a sentiment of gratitude for her role in sparking their activism, even if they seek to diversify the movement's face. Greta Thunberg's foundation made donations to Climate 2025, which supported youth activists from most affected people and areas attending COP27 and other conferences. The Foundation's mission, aligned with Thunberg's values, aims to amplify underrepresented voices, suggesting that her friends in these regions value her efforts to elevate their platforms. Activists from the Global South, for instance, Philippines or India, have pointed out that FFF was initially pretty whitewashed. They appreciated Thunberg's efforts to learn and adapt, such as passing the mic at COP25 in 2019, but felt the movement needed to better address Global South realities. This suggests that while Thunberg is respected, her friends sometimes challenge her to broaden her perspective. Several FFF activists told Politico that the media's fascination with Thunberg was a source of frustration because it often silenced other people. They clarified that Thunberg herself was not stepping away from activism, but rather encouraged a more collective focus, indicating trust in her intentions. There aren't, it would appear, quotations or observations provided from what we might describe as normal friends, i.e. people outside of the activist group, that the people that have provided observations about Thunberg have been complimentary and supportive, recognizing various good traits of hers, but they all hail from the same environment as Thunberg, and it might be said that there's a degree of bias in their observations as a consequence of them being similarly climate activists. We don't hear from, for instance, schoolhood friends, that we don't hear from the people that she has grown up with. But this should be observed in two ways. We don't hear from them in terms of positively, but we also don't hear from them negatively. There aren't negative voices in relation to Thunberg coming from people who would be regarded as her friends. Those that speak about her from the activism sphere describe her as an authentic, empathetic and inspiring activist who values friendship deeply, finds joy in shared moments and galvanizes collective action. They admire her resilience and moral clarity, but sometimes critique the media's focus on her, particularly when it overshadows activists from marginalized regions. Accordingly, with regard to the situation with friendship, there are certainly many people that speak positively about her, but we might not place too great a weight upon that because it's evident that they are bound to do so because they have a similar perspective to her and could be regarded as biased. We don't hear much from childhood or close friends, either positively or negatively. It might also be the case that Thunberg is not necessarily somebody who makes friends particularly easily, given her apparent autism diagnosis, as a consequence of the fact that some people with autism have difficulty maintaining relationships owing to the fact that they have difficulty processing the emotional responses of other people and responding to certain cues. And therefore, it may well be that Thunberg doesn't have particularly close friends as a consequence of that. Given the fact that we've heard from people who have spoken positively about her, we're next going to examine some of the less favourable commentary that has been made in relation to Greta Thunberg to find out what that tells us about her. Join me in part 7.